guys, it's Jamie. I'm here today with Emma Ainsworth from Chicago Title, and this is another episode of Ask a Noco Pro. We try to meet every single Monday at lunchtime at noon to learn more from a local Northern Colorado professional. Today, we are going to be talking about title and title commitments. So I've got our pro, Emma, here today. She is a title pro for sure. A great tool in your tool belt if you're a real estate agent or a buyer or a seller looking to better understand the title world. Feel free to take notes, pause, send us a message if you have a question. That's kind of how today works, is we're just going to go through some questions and answers, and hopefully it's a question that you've had and that you won't have after you watch this video. But Emma, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into some questions.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jamie. I appreciate you having me. My name is Emma Ainsworth. I work for Chicago Title here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I have been here just under 3 years. It'll be 3 years in August. Before that, I was at another title company here in town, and I've worked for a couple others. I've been in the industry for 12 years. I started as a receptionist, not knowing a single thing about title insurance, and I've just kind of slowly throughout the years worked my way up. Title insurance is a little kind of like mortgages, real estate, everything. It's always changing. There's always things to learn. So even 12 years in, I'm learning every day something new. So I'm an escrow officer here at Chicago Title. So I handle real estate transactions, like Jamie said, whether it be buyer side, seller side. Sometimes we have full closings with both buyers and sellers here. I also handle refinances. I can do commercial loans, new construction. We can kind of do all sorts of things here at Chicago Title.
Yes, they've helped me with a lot of different things. Okay, we're just going to go through some quick questions. Feel free to answer these as in-depth or as simply as you want. If you're joining us, feel free to drop some questions in the chat and I will read those to Emma as we go. You can also unmute yourself, like this is a call for all of you guys, and this is meant to help you if you have questions, right? And you're just trying to find answers to them. So this one's kind of super duper basic. Just what is a title commitment basically, and how does it differ from just a simple title search?
So a title commitment is the title commitments product. So that is what we issue out to all parties of the transaction once we receive a contract and or a title request if it is a refinance. So a title commitment is going to be usually anywhere from 8 to 10 pages, and it's going to show who is currently vested on the property. If it is a refinance, it's going to have the loan amount and who the new lender for the refinance is going to be. For a purchase, it'll have who the current sellers or the current owners of the home and how they are vested in title. And it will also show on usually page 3 or 4, you will see the Schedule B requirements. Requirements are what title insurance go off of to ensure clear title to the new buyers as it is a purchase and or the current owners and to the lender if it's a refinance. So that's going to show anything that's recorded against the property. So it's going to have your payoffs. It's going to have if there's any judgments against any one of the parties, whether it be on a purchase, the current owner or the seller, or sometimes we do have it on the buyer side as well. If there are any HOA liens, if there's any utility liens, that is all going to show under those requirements. And title commitments, they can go in depth, and I could go on for a while, but depending on who we have, who is in title and or purchasing the property, if you are an entity of any sort, if you're an LLC, if you're a corporation, if you're a trust, you will see most likely always a requirement for a statement of authority. That's going to show who is signing on behalf of that entity and their capacity to do so. So that is another requirement you may see on those title commitments. And then after the title commitments are the exceptions to the property. Those are going to vary transaction to transaction. Sometimes they're very basic and you may only see 5 or 6 exceptions. Sometimes you may see up to 50 or 60. It just kind of depends on what's all been recorded and the type of transaction and or the certain neighborhood or area of where the property is located. So a title commitment, we do still do title searches. That's how we issue that title commitment. A title search is more or less just going to show you basically the same thing. So we can also do smaller searches. O&Es are similar. Those can show any liens and judgments against the property. It's not going to show any exceptions. It's not going to show anything to that detail. But the title commitment, like I said, is our product. It's basically us letting all parties of the transaction know this is what we're doing from start to finish on the transaction to ensure clear title moving forward after the closing has ended.
I love it. So like, long story short, title commitment is the insurance, like actually saying, hey, we're going to insure this property. Here's any exceptions, here's any rules to that insurance policy.
Yep.
And then the title search is kind of just like, here's how everything looks. Here's the liens that are on the property. Here's who owns it. And here's who has owned it over the past couple of years. So
correct. Title searches are also not going to have any fees. Our title commitment on the Schedule A, where it shows who the current owner of the home is, the legal description, it is going to show the detail of the fees. So whatever the purchase price is, it's going to have what our title insurance premium cost is. There's a loan involved and we know the loan amount, it'll have the loan insurance premium as well. And then the owner's extended coverage, tax certificate, and the CPL, which is the closing protection letter that the lender requires. It'll have those fees all added as well.
Love it. Okay, this kind of piggybacks off of something that you said as well, but can you explain kind of the most common exceptions that you see and how they can impact a transaction?
So the common exceptions are the 1 through 4, which it kind of talks about like parties in possession, any easements, encroachments, that type of thing. So the standard exceptions are on all, and then if there's anything in addition to, that'll be listed down below. I will point out exceptions are not my strong suit. I usually have our local title officers kind of jump in if there's any issues or if there's anything that we need to address at that time. But parties in possession, if there's anything outside of this transaction that maybe was recorded or any easements, all of that, we always take a look at those exceptions. Never hurts that if there are exceptions that an agent or a buyer or seller may have a question on, feel free to reach out. We can definitely always do 3-way calls or get in touch with our title department to see if that is something that's necessarily needed on the transaction or if it could potentially be removed, as it may not be a large potential risk to any parties on the transaction.
I love it. I think that's a great answer. Okay. I love to ask this question because I don't think a lot of listing agents do this, but how can working with a local title company help a listing agent kind of avoid issues throughout a transaction?
So working with a local title company or Chicago Title in particular, the things that we do differently to kind of make sure that the transaction is going to go smooth and no issues are to arise are a couple of things. If by chance we meet ahead, if you're a new agent and we meet ahead of time, we always show kind of like our pre-closing sheet or a pre-contract sheet that kind of helps listing agents really go through the necessary steps to avoid any issues moving forward. This will include, are any of the parties in the transaction deceased, which could be a sad situation? Is it another sad situation? Is there a divorce, so that we may know to handle the transaction a little separately between the owners of the home or the sellers? Is it that entity, kind of like we talked about? So if there is an LLC or a corporation, we want to make sure that we do obtain that operating agreement, or at least let the listing agent know that is what we will require throughout the transaction process while we're waiting for closing. And then letting them know that statement of authority will be signed. If there is a trust, this is a big one because a lot of trusts get prepared without matching bank accounts to them. So people will set up trust agreements through their attorney, but then they will not go and open up a bank account in the name of that trust. So we always want to make sure that sellers have bank accounts that match how they hold title. Obviously, when it's an individual, husband, wife, brother, sister, however you have your sellers, we just want to make sure bank accounts match. Obviously, if you do have like a father-daughter situation like I've had in the past, we just need to know ahead of time how we're going to split out those proceeds. make sure those are okay. So again, it's just good working with local title companies, always developing that really good relationship with your closer. I have always told agents, regardless of the situation, whether it be me or somebody else, or you're on the buy side and you're working with a totally different title company and you have questions, please feel free to use me as a resource. I'm here, I'm happy to help. I can always kind of take a look and just make sure that the transaction goes smooth on all ends.
Absolutely. I love that. I think it's important to, obviously you're going to talk to your sellers and you're going to say, hey, how much is your current mortgage balance? How much is, do you have a HELOC? Do you have a second mortgage? But I've had people in the past who use down payment assistance to buy their home and their original lender did not explain it well enough. And so they didn't realize that they had not only their first mortgage, which they told their listing agent the balance of, but they also had a $15,000 second mortgage. And it ended up causing them to be at a loss when the settlement statement came out. So if that listing agent had, even just had their local title company run a title search, they would have been able to see that CHAPA down payment assistance second and gone, oh, okay, we might need to price this differently. We can't offer seller credits, so it doesn't necessarily mean you can't do the deal. It just means you might want to go about the deal differently. Okay, next question.
That's a great thought. Yep.
Yeah, next question that I have, and this is something we've worked on together, but how can working with a local title company help when you are in a divorce situation? Like, how can title step in and help you as a listing agent or a buyer's agent when you're dealing with multiple buy sells and trying to keep that all organized?
Absolutely. So it's always a tough situation when you're dealing with a divorce situation. And I know it can't be easy as a listing agent to try and coordinate both ends of the situation. Because again, emotions are high. People are angry, people are sad. It's kind of all over the board. So us as a third party, again, keeping that relationship good between the listing agent and the title rep or the title escrow officer, it really helps kind of smooth out the transaction, because sometimes there are questions that the listing agent may not know. I mean, this kind of goes down, like I said, to the proceeds, like, are we splitting everything 50-50? Are proceeds going over to an attorney? It just kind of all ends of the spectrum. And it's good to have a local title person to just kind of ask those specific questions that we know to ask throughout the transaction. And then that way the lender's not, or sorry, not the lender, the listing agent's not going back and forth with their client, just being like, okay, do you have this and do you have this? We can maybe do one conversation. And I always say, like, if you want, I'm happy to reach out to them. Sometimes it goes best in the listing agent's favor to have us do it, just being that third party, the mutual person of the transaction. And then that way the listing agent can still keep that good relationship to and with their clients, as again, the situation can always be a little, it can have its ups and downs, and you always just want to make sure that everyone feels at ease and comfortable throughout the process.
Absolutely. It's like having a teammate on your team, and especially with divorce situations, and if you're helping those clients, purchase new homes and stuff, I'm sure having the proceeds split out correctly is hugely important. And working with people like Emma and Chicago Title, like, you'll know that there's not going to be any issues, because they're going to work with you and those clients to make sure that, hey, we have it split 52, 40, 48, because that's,
we've seen it all kinds of ways.
We're sending, to the money directly to their other title company for their new purchase. Like, little things like that can definitely help in any transaction, especially in a divorce situation or any sort of split up situation. Let's see here. How can real estate agents assist their clients in understanding the terms of a title commitment?
That's just more or less, that comes with time. I mean, very seasoned veteran real estate agents, I think, really have a good grasp on the title commitment. Obviously, each title commitment is going to be different. What we do here at Chicago Title, and it's kind of been a Northern Colorado process, if you will say, moving forward is when the title commitment goes out, us as the title or as the escrow officers will review the title commitment. And then we will send out an email to the listing agent side and the selling agent side, just kind of letting them know, hey, we've taken a look at the title commitment. This is how title is vested. We're going to be paying off XYZ loans, whether it be 1, 2, 3. And then please let us know if you have any questions moving forward. Same with the buy side, because sometimes you may have something that comes up on the buyer's side. I had one a few weeks ago. There was a Department of Revenue tax judgment against the buyer. It was all taken care of, but the state never released the lien. So we had to get with the buyers and get the appropriate documentation for closing. So we just make sure that we instruct people that we've looked at the title commitment, we've reviewed it, this is what we see or what we don't see, just so that they know we're aware. We don't just get the title commitment and throw it into a folder and then we get to closing and hope we crossed all our T's and dotted our I's. We make sure that we're on top of it. If there's anything that's out of the ordinary that we know may take longer than a standard 24, 48-hour payoff, we're addressing it sooner rather than later to avoid any delays.
I love it. Trying to think of which one I want to ask next. Okay, cash deals. Why is it super duper important to work with a good title company on a cash deal?
So cash deals, they can be super quick. I mean, you could get a contract and close the same week. You could close, usually what we like to say is give us at least 7 to 10 days on a cash transaction, just because the one thing that can hold us back on any type of transaction is the HOA status letter. Depending on the HOA company, it can take a few extra days to get those in. And if at all possible, HOAs sometimes do tend to tack on additional fees if we want to close early. So I know cash transactions are easy, they're quick. Here at Chicago Title, if you are a individual paying cash for a property or 2 individuals paying cash for a property, you are welcome to e-sign all of your documents. So that's super user-friendly. You don't have to take time off work or go out of your way to come to a title company. Obviously, we would love to meet you and all of that, but we do like to be cautious of everyone's schedules. And then as far as that goes, apologize, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're so good. Yeah, I think it's super important either way. You know, like
yeah.
I think a lot of people consider cash transactions, or even if you're a for sale by owner, like they consider cash transactions to be easy, and that is the case for sure. But there are still things that need to be done when it comes to title, and when you don't have a lender facilitating that necessarily, who you work with is a lot more important. So.
Yep, you want to make sure that, again, everything gets addressed, because even if a property is a cash transaction, there could be some cumbersome liens that are still there that may take a little longer. So again, we do all we can to try and meet those deadlines, at least if it's a super quick turnaround time for closing. But yeah, just working with us, working with a good title company, having that good relationship, and just being like, hey, this is a situation, can we make it work? I've had agents that call me and say, hey, I've got a cash transaction, they want to close Friday, can it be done? And I mean, I'm never going to say no. I'm going to say, well, send it over, let's see what we can do. If by chance we have to adjust by a day or so, we have to, and they're usually okay with that. But usually everyone's pretty happy if things can get done in that quick time frame, which cash transactions usually are.
I love it. Yeah, there's still payoffs and stuff involved, so it's important to get that title order in as soon as you have the contract. But even though there's less steps for the real estate agent and there's no lender involved, working with title companies is super important. Okay, this is one that I don't feel like, since you and I normally work on the front end of the deals a lot more, we don't deal with this a lot. But if a real estate agent has a client come to them after closing and they say, hey, I think I have a title issue, how would you recommend that real estate agent go about it, especially if they were working with Chicago?
So if they did have a title issue of any sort, please feel free to reach out to your escrow officer directly.
Yes.
If you by chance weren't sure, never got a card, don't know, you can always call the main office. There's always somebody here and just say, hey, we have an issue that kind of came up post-closing. we could either get you in touch with who your closer was and or the appropriate party to handle the situation, whatever it may be. We all work here as a team here in Northern Colorado, so we can all typically help any issues that may arise with any transactions and or any closer that may have handled the process. And then, like I said, if we need to get a title examiner involved or upper management involved, our legal team, we can address on who to handle that request for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really good to know. I always tell people to look on the last page of their closing disclosure or their settlement statement to be able to see who their title officer was. But title insurance I mean, yeah, I guess good next question, you know, like what would be some more common things that may happen that could cause someone to need to use their title insurance?
You know, the big ones may be like if there's an easement or a driveway, a fence, any type of encroachment on a property that could cause a title insurance claim. We've had title insurance claims happen for mechanics liens. If the seller signs an affidavit and indemnity agreement at closing stating that they didn't have any work started and maybe they did, and then seller wasn't happy and a lien was placed against the property after closing, and it's ahead of now the new loan, which the lender does need to be in first position. So that would be a title insurance claim there. So little things like that. Very rarely do we see title insurance claims, but it is always good to have because you just never know. Things can come up. Mountain properties are one thing when you're dealing with the different types of acreage or those shared driveways or dirt roads, anything along those sort of things. A standard lot and block, the chances are a little slimmer as far as seeing title insurance claims, but there have been different situations that have arisen throughout the years, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And I guess, you know, a little asterisk on that is it tremendously depends on the property type too. You know, there's different things that can happen. But I always tell my clients, you know, if this would be a more uncommon one, but if someone was to come and say, hey, I'm actually the owner of this house, I never signed off on selling, that's where title insurance would step in and be like, no, we did a search and here's the paper that says everybody that was on title signed this document. So, you know, we're good to go. Or yeah, I always joke with people if the seller bought new toilets from Lowe's and then never paid for them and signed all these documents at closing saying, hey, yeah, everything's been zeroed out and paid, no problem. And then you guys start getting the bill for the Lowe's toilets. That's another reason that you would want to call your title company and say, hey, do you know what the heck this is for? Because we haven't installed toilets. You know, the seller was supposed to for inspection, but they were supposed to pay for that. So what's going on? So yeah, just kind of like real life day-to-day examples of why you might need it. Ideally, you don't need your title insurance, but in case something pops up, it's really good to have.
It's good to have. And to piggyback off of you saying people selling properties from out underneath them, Chicago Title is really, really big on that because that is a big fraud situation that has come about. It's bigger in vacant land properties because, again, obviously the owner of that vacant land does not live there, but it can happen in investment properties as well. So Chicago Title and F&F as a whole have done a really good job of when we have sellers who don't occupy the property that's being sold, we send out what's called an absentee letter. We overnight it, so they get it UPS just a couple days after we get the contract and have done the commitment and the title search, showing that Emma Ainsworth does not live at 123 ABC Street. So we would send out that absentee letter just saying, hey, Emma Ainsworth, I want you to know we received a contract on this property. We're starting title work. We have a closing date. Please let us know if for whatever reason this home is not being sold. So that's kind of one way that we're trying to stop that fraud situation that's happening. Another thing is we're kind of going above and beyond that. So if we do those absentee letters and something comes back to where we might have sellers with very common last names, we may send out what's called a MyTech link. It goes through text. And what you as a seller will do is you will go in and you have to verify you are who you are. You have to take a selfie. If you wear glasses, you can't wear the glasses. And then it's kind of like, not a background check, but really like a double, triple verification that you are indeed this person and you are indeed selling this home, because Chicago Title has stopped a handful of fraudulent transactions. So it's really good to stay on top of it. It's really good as a listing agent to have a good relationship with your clients. Same with buyers. I know sometimes when you're working with out-of-state sellers and or buyers, sometimes you don't ever meet them, but I always highly encourage to do more than just talk on the phone or text. Maybe set up a Zoom, at least meet face to face. Say, hey, this is me. I'm handling the sale of your home from here as you're afar. So it's really good to do that, just to stop those fraudsters from doing more things that we don't want them to do.
Absolutely. Gosh, I mean, well, that automatically makes me want to ask and answer the wire fraud question. So how do you recommend agents work with their clients to ensure or at least prevent wire fraud as best as possible?
So that's another thing that agents recently, at least within the last couple of years, have kind of stepped aside from, because again, the wiring is from the client to the title company and the title company to the client. So if you are a buyer and you are wiring your earnest money and or your down payment, please call us. Any one of us here in Northern Colorado, any one of us here in the Fort Collins office can get you those wiring instructions. We do give them verbally over the phone. We do not like to email them, even securely, because emails can still be tampered with, even if they're secure email. So we do give those verbally over the phone. And then a cool thing about our system is if we do know that a wire is coming in, we can put in what's called a wire claim into our system. So as soon as that wire has been sent and it hits our bank account, we automatically get an email in our inbox saying, hey, your $100,000 wire has made it. It came from XYZ. And then I can go ahead and reach out to the client and their agent directly and just say, hey, your wire has made it, just so they have that peace of mind. Same with on the seller side. When you're a seller, we do not want your wiring instructions before closing. We want them at the table, whether you're signing in front of me personally, or you're signing electronically on a remote online signing, or you're signing with a notary somewhere out of state. Please provide those wiring instructions on the form provided through Chicago Title. And then once we receive those back, I will call you to verbally verify those wiring instructions that you gave us. So we do that two-step verification process as well. And then obviously when wires are sent out, they go through at least 2 to 3 hands, double checking numbers, triple checking numbers, making sure that we are good to go. So obviously that we do prevent any type of wire fraud throughout any part of the transaction.
Yeah, I think the most important part is, I know as real estate agents, especially if you're new or even if you've been doing this for a long time, staying out of those wiring instructions. As a lender, I tell my clients, here is the public phone number of the title company. Feel free to Google it and make sure you're calling the title company and not anyone else. If someone emails you, feel free to forward it to me. I just had a client this morning who got a request to enter her information as a buyer for title, and she texted me and she said, this says so-and-so title company. Is this right though? And I said, just go ahead and forward it to me and I'll take a look over it, and I'll make sure before you start entering your personal information that it's okay, even on the front end, before the wires, even been talked about. And then another thing, it's always good to just call. If you're unsure about something, call the title company, call your closer, ask a couple questions, make sure, because there's so many different scams out there, and you may think you've seen it all, but the title company probably actually has. So yeah, just reaching out to them.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it.
I mean, as a buyer and or a seller, you may feel more comfortable chatting with your agent about it. And knowing the agent, they're going to have the relationship with us, whether we've met them or not. But again, always good to just double check, because me as a seller, I may not know who Emma Ainsworth is at Chicago Title, but I know who my agent is. You can chat with them, and then, like I said, we can all coordinate and just get everybody comfortable, feeling good about the situation. I see it all the time, saying, hey, can I give you my wiring instructions? And I just say, nope. I said, please just hang on to those. I said, we've got a form that you'll fill out at closing, and we'll be good to go there. So Chicago Title has done a really good job of just keeping everything super safe and secure. I know technology is what it is, and sometimes things can get a little confusing. Aside from title commitments, a couple other things that Chicago Title does for sellers and buyers is we do send out a secure portal. So that kind of also helps us communicate with the seller directly, kind of takes the listing agent out as far as that personal information piece goes. That way, listing agent isn't getting loan amounts, or I'm sorry, loan numbers, socials, all of that. That stays straight in that portal. It's very user friendly. We do still have some people that call on those, but it really helps us connect with the sellers, keep everything secure, but then obtain all the information needed for our closing. So that's really nice too.
Yeah, it's again, pairing with the title company is important, not only just because it makes your life easier, but it's going to make it easier for you to get to closing, which is the end goal. You want to be able to help your client either sell or purchase, and at the end of the day, without a good title company, that can be a little bit more difficult. Speaking of closing, I know you and I have worked out some fun out-of-state closings before, but in general, what options does Chicago Title have for closing if sellers are not necessarily going to be able to sign at Chicago Title here in Colorado?
Sure, absolutely. So a couple different options. So the big one that has kind of come about in the last few years is the RON signing. So RON is remote online notarization. So what that entails is Chicago Title, we would prepare all of the documents needed for the transaction, whether it be a seller side or a buyer side, only if they are an entity. Because again, if you're a single individual buying a property, you can e-sign everything through DocuSign, which is common throughout, as a lot of realtors use DocuSign. Yeah. But as a seller, they can go in. So what we do is we prepare all the documents and show exactly where they'll need to sign. So we'll mark all the boxes, check all the boxes appropriate to the transaction, and then upload it to a company called Proof. They then will send out a link to the seller, and it's a 24/7. So it's not a scheduled time. They've got notaries working 24/7 all over the US. So there are notaries. I don't know if there are any in Colorado, but there are Texas, Florida, Virginia that do have people who are licensed to do the remote online notarization. So what the seller will do is they will go in and do the authentication process. So they're going to do a copy of their driver's license. They're going to upload it front and back. They're going to answer security questions that will pertain only to them. And then they will go through and review all of their documents as they would via DocuSign. So they're going to take a look, make sure names are spelled correctly, addresses look good, purchase price, everything is what it needs to be. And then down at the bottom, when they're ready, they will click a button that just says start my e-signing, and then they will be paired. It is a Zoom-like call. It's not Zoom necessarily, but it is a Zoom-like call, kind of like what we are doing here today. And they will go through all of the process. You have to do the oath and state your name and do all of that process. And then you and that notary on the other side of the camera will conduct your signing as you would sitting at a closing table. So super user friendly. That is the cheapest option of the two. Another option would be is if the seller would prefer to have a physical notary come to either their home, place of business, if they want to meet at a local coffee shop or restaurant, we're happy to coordinate that as well. We partner with BankServe. They have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of notaries that are approved and all over the US. So whether you're in a teeny little town in Kansas or you're in a big city, we'll be able to find somebody for you. That fee ranges a little bit, just depending on where you are. But sometimes people do like to have the comfort of the real person. Obviously, you are a real person over Zoom, but having that physical one-on-one interaction as if you would coming into a title company like Chicago Title here.
Yes. So there's lots of options, which is nice. I've had people do power of attorneys, which can take a lot longer. You know, it's definitely good to reach out to the title company as a listing agent or a buyer's agent. The single moment that you know your buyer or seller isn't going to be able to sign at closing. I know a lot of people wait until the week before or till you get clear to close until you start asking those questions of, you know, what's your work schedule like? Are you in town? Your lender may be super on top of that for you, but it's just always good to reach out in advance because normally that can make things so much smoother. Like doing a Ron signing is way easier than having someone double sign, you know, for a power of attorney that takes so long. So yeah, just having that team.
And that helps with that portal as well, because sellers can go in, buyers can even go in and just say either yes, they're going to be at closing, or no, they're not. So that kind of triggers us to ask those questions to the agents to be like, hey, we understand that sellers don't live here. And then we can go through all those processes of how do they want to sign, when do they want to sign, all of that good stuff. So we try and do our best to check all of those little ancillary boxes throughout, just to avoid any issues once we get to the table. Once we get to the table, that's the fun part. You want to make sure everyone's excited and ready to go and happy to be moving, and that there's no hiccups at that time. So again, we do send out the welcome letters at the beginning. So once we get a new contract from a listing agent and or a buyer's agent, we will send out that welcome letter. That's kind of when we're going to ask all those questions. We're going to ask on the listing side, we're going to do commissions. Contact information is huge. We really like to have phone numbers and emails, not only in case we need to get a hold of them, but also we do need those for our portal because they do go out via email. If there is going to be a power of attorney, if there is a divorce, is this a death? Is there an estate? Because a lot of people, and every transaction is different. So again, you and I could go on and on about the different situations. So it's just kind of one of those, like, we take each transaction as it comes. And then again, we'll just kind of touch base and just be like, hey, is this one good to go? Anything out of the ordinary that we need to know? And if so, we can address it in an early matter, like I said, to avoid any issues or problems throughout.
I love it. Well, as we wrap up, I definitely want to ask, I know you do mock closings with newer agents and newer lenders. So if you're out there and you're watching this and you're like, gosh, I wish I could just have a make-believe closing and just see what happens. Emma will sit down and do that with you. She's phenomenal. I love having her at my closings. I try to go to all my closings, but if I'm sick or can't make it, I love having Emma there because I know she's still going to go through everything with the client, make them feel super comfortable, make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed so we don't have to re-sign documents. Like, she's super on top of it. But other than that mock closing that you do, what other tools does Chicago Title have for both new and experienced listing and buyer's agents?
So mock closings are huge. They're really good for newer agents. Sometimes if an agent only does a couple transactions a year and just wants a refresher, maybe loan docs have changed or some of our stuff has changed and they just want a refresher, we are happy to always handle those mock closings. So just feel free to give me a shout and I would be more than happy to get that all set up for you. Lenders too. Because it is key, not only as a realtor, but as a lender too, to kind of know what to expect. And if there's any questions that may arise at closing, knowing kind of how to be prepared for that. So a few other things that Chicago Title does offer. We do have the Chicago Agent app. That is our NetSheet app. So it's free to join. The only charge would be if you wanted to upgrade to the premium version. I think it's maybe $99 a year. I'd have to check. That's kind of a sales key point. But even the standard version of the net sheets are good. It's always harder to do a buyer net sheet. That's kind of where we always bring in the lender to kind of give in their initial fees just to see kind of where the buyer is at. But I do 5 to 10 net sheets for listing agents for a seller side a week, because it's really, sellers want to know what they're making. They want to know what to expect at closing and what fees are going to be involved. So we do have that app. We also have what's called Title Toolbox, and that is more of a farming tool that sales is really good at kind of pitching and teaching a lot of more expert realtors, but also the new realtors as well that kind of want to get out there and get the ball rolling and kind of learn what their demographic or their sphere may look like on how to succeed in the business. So it's a really easy tool. Sales is much better at it than I am, but you can put in an address, you can put in a subdivision, you can put in a radius of subdivisions or areas that you want to kind of look at. And then from there, you can specify all the way down to empty nesters or most likely to sell or anything like that. People that have only lived there 10 years or people that have lived there 30 years. And then it will pull a list of all of those owners. So that's when realtors can kind of go in and be like, okay, I want to do the door tags, or I want to do a list and maybe just call because I've got a buyer that wants to live in XYZ neighborhood. So we want to kind of get a list of who lives in there. And you never know. Some people might be like, you know what, I didn't really think about it, but yes, I am kind of looking to sell. And then you can build that relationship there. So there is a teeny charge for phone numbers and emails. I think it's like 10 cents or 12 cents an email. So what you can do is we can set you up with Title Toolbox. You can go in, plug in a certain dollar amount, 25 bucks, 50 bucks, and then you're good to go. So once you do have that list, if you want that contact information, it's there, and then you don't have to obviously worry about paying right then and there. Your account has that preloaded amount. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to get you in touch with either Barry or Melissa here at Chicago Title. Net sheets, same thing. We can do them for you. Sales can also do them for you. And then we can also kind of go through them together if it's something that you would like to do for your sellers each time that you may have a new listing. So those are the different tools that we have here. Obviously, we're super fun. We're outgoing. We like to have a good time. Obviously, we want to make sure that the closing is good on all ends. Sometimes it's an emotional. Sometimes people are angry. Sometimes people are happy. Most times people are happy. So we just want to make sure that regardless of the situation at hand, whatever it may be, that everyone is comfortable and okay with the outcome that may be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, just being able to work with a good local title company is so important because you know that if you pick up the phone and you give them a call, they're going to pick up. They're going to be helpful. Like Emma's so great at picking up the phone. I've had clients try to call me. They couldn't get me, so they just called Emma. And I think that's great.
You can call me. You can text me. You can email me.
You solved the problem before I could even get off the other line. So yeah, it's a great tool to have. If you watch this and you have additional questions, I'll post Emma and Melissa and Barry's info in the description of this video. Recording will be up on YouTube probably by the end of the day. And then yeah, just reach out to us. We do this for you guys to be able to give you more information and kind of almost save a little bit of your time by getting it kind of spitfire quickly question and answer. But yeah, Emma, do you guys have anything coming up that we should know about? Any community events or fun things happening?
I know we do have a couple classes. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. I can definitely get you that information if need be. I know Ryan is super good about sending out his weekly email that will have different articles about what's going on locally and or state and nationwide in the real estate market. He also includes foreclosure listings on there too, as I know some agents do like to go after those, or any investors that people may know. And then Barry has been doing a good email sending out to clients showing what is coming up for the following week. So, because usually this week you may have your week all planned, but maybe next week you may have a couple openings. So we can maybe share that with you all. And then, like I said, I know we have a couple classes coming up, so I can let you know what those are. But yeah, it's going to be a good summer. We're rocking and rolling. It's getting busy, getting warm out, so we're ready.
Yeah,
ready to take care of you guys.
Things are thawing out. And I was even thinking earlier, you know, if you're an experienced agent and lender, but it's been a while since you've had a closing, that's okay. A lot of people have been there the past 2 years.
It's okay.
Come in, sit down with Emma, do a mock closing just as a refresher.
Totally.
You never know.
Totally. Or just give me a shout.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, just give me a shout. Like I said, I want to be that tool, that resource, regardless of the situation. So again, if you're on the buy side and you are not comfortable whatsoever talking to your closer on the buy side, please give me a shout. I'd be always happy to help. Title companies, I mean, we are more or less, obviously the products that we issue and the people that we have, we differ on that. But I mean, title insurance is title insurance. So we all have that one goal in mind, and it's to get to the table and have a smooth transaction. So anything that I can do on any end of the spectrum, please feel free to give me a shout. Like I said, text me, call me, email me. I will get back to you and we'll make you feel comfortable and we'll get that deal done.
I love it. Well, Emma, thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Yeah.
We are so lucky to have amazing Northern Colorado professionals like you. We'll be back next week. I haven't chosen yet who we'll be seeing from. We'll either be learning about mobile homes or 1031 exchanges, which are both very interesting and hot topics, especially in Colorado. So join us next week. Otherwise, check out the YouTube page. If you're watching this recorded, we've talked to appraisers, home warranty salespeople, inspectors, the whole 9 yards. So go through those, learn as much as you can, and definitely reach out to Emma at Chicago Title if you have any more title questions.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Bye, guys.
Bye.